Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and discovering that something has shifted. Not in the sky or the streets or the buildings around you, but in the people, in every person you pass, every voice you hear, every face you see on a screen. Imagine that for just one day, everyone on Earth decided to live like the Stoics. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but with intention, with patience, with a quiet awareness of what they can control and what they cannot. What would that day look like? How would it feel to move through a world like that? And what might we learn if we allowed ourselves to imagine it, even for a moment? Before we step into that world together, I want to pause and say something from the heart. This channel recently reached 200 subscribers, and I know that might not sound like much in the grand scheme of things, but to me, it means everything. I started this space because I wanted to create something calm in a noisy world, something reflective, something that might help someone feel a little less alone in their thoughts. Knowing that 200 people have chosen to be here, to listen, to reflect alongside me, that's not just a number, that's a small community, and it reminds me why I do this. So thank you. Truly. Your presence here matters more than you know, and it motivates me to keep creating these quiet moments we can share. Now, let's step into this day together. The morning begins differently. You wake up, and instead of immediately reaching for your phone, you pause. You notice the light coming through the window. You feel the weight of the blanket. You take a breath, not because someone told you to, but because you're present enough to notice it. Across the city, across the world, millions of others are doing the same. They're not rushing into worry. They're not replaying yesterday's mistakes or rehearsing today's anxieties. They're simply here. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." On this day, people remember that. Not as a motivational quote on a screen, but as a lived truth. You get ready for the day, and something feels lighter. There's no frantic energy. No one is honking in traffic because they're running late. No one is snapping at their partner because the coffee didn't brew right. Studies show that nearly 70% of people report feeling stressed on a daily basis, and much of that stress comes from things outside their control. Traffic, other people's moods, the weather, the past. But today, people have quietly decided to let go of what they cannot change. They focus instead on their own responses, on their own choices. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And today, people stop imagining the worst. They stop creating problems that don't exist yet. They simply move through the morning with calm and care. On the train, in the coffee shop, in the elevator at work, something is different. People make eye contact. Not in an aggressive way, but in a way that says, "I see you. You're human. I'm human. We're both here." There's no need to perform or impress or defend. A woman drops her bag and spills her belongings across the floor. Normally, she might feel embarrassed. She might rush to pick everything up, cheeks flushed, hoping no one noticed. But today, 3 people kneel down to help her without hesitation. No one films it. No one makes a big deal of it. It's just what you do when you see someone who needs help. And she smiles, not out of politeness, but out of genuine gratitude. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Today, people are not slaves to their egos. They don't need to be the center of attention. They don't need to prove anything. They're free to simply be kind. At work, the atmosphere shifts in ways that are hard to describe but easy to feel. Meetings don't spiral into arguments. When someone presents an idea, others listen, really listen. Not to find flaws or to prepare their rebuttal, but to understand. When disagreements arise, and they do, people pause before responding. They ask themselves, is this worth the conflict? Is my pride more important than progress? Is my need to be right more valuable than this relationship? Research in organizational psychology shows that workplaces with high emotional intelligence see 30% higher productivity and significantly lower turnover. Today, every workplace has that. Not because of a training seminar, but because people have chosen to practice self-awareness and empathy. A manager receives an email that, on any other day, would have made her furious. A project has fallen behind. A mistake was made. Normally, she might fire off a sharp reply. She might call someone into her office and let her frustration spill over. But today, she pauses. She reads the email again. She considers the person on the other end. She remembers that everyone is doing their best with what they have. She responds with clarity, not cruelty. She addresses the issue without attacking the person. And the person who made the mistake doesn't spiral into shame. They take responsibility. They learn. They move forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Today, no one seeks revenge. No one holds grudges. People simply do what needs to be done with grace. Lunchtime comes, and people eat without distraction. They're not scrolling through their phones, comparing their lives to curated images of others. They're not numbing themselves with endless content. They taste their food. They notice the flavors. They sit with their thoughts, and those thoughts are not enemies. Psychologists have found that mindfulness, the practice of being present, reduces symptoms of anxiety and depression by nearly 40%. Today, everyone practices it naturally, not as a technique, but as a way of being. And in that presence, there's peace. In the afternoon, someone cuts you off in traffic. Normally, your heart might race. You might honk. You might curse under your breath and carry that anger with you for the next hour. But today, you pause. You realize that person is not your enemy. They're just someone in a hurry. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're distracted. Maybe they're having the worst day of their life. You let it go, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to choose your response. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Today, people react with wisdom instead of impulse. The online world transforms in ways that feel almost surreal. Social media, usually a battleground of outrage and performance, becomes something quieter. People still share their thoughts, but they don't need to be right. They don't need to win. When someone posts something they disagree with, they scroll past. Or, if they choose to engage, they do so with curiosity instead of contempt. They ask questions instead of making accusations. Studies show that online arguments almost never change anyone's mind. They only deepen divisions. Today, people remember that. They choose connection over conflict. And the digital space, for once, feels a little more human. A teenager posts a photo and doesn't check the likes every 5 minutes. She doesn't measure her worth by the number of hearts or comments. She shared something because she wanted to, and that's enough. Her friends don't compare themselves to her. They don't feel inadequate or envious. They simply appreciate the moment she shared and move on with their own lives. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Today, people enjoy the present. They stop waiting for the next thing to make them happy. They find contentment in what is. Evening arrives and families come together. Dinner is not rushed. Conversations are not interrupted by phones or televisions. Parents listen to their children without trying to fix everything. Children feel heard. Partners talk about their days without judgment or criticism. When tensions rise, and they do because we're all human, people pause. They breathe. They remember that the person across from them is not the enemy. They're the person they chose, the person they love. And love is not about being right, it's about being present. Research shows that couples who practice active listening and emotional regulation report significantly higher relationship satisfaction. Today, every relationship benefits from that practice. A father tucks his daughter into bed, and instead of rushing through the routine, he stays. He listens to her talk about her day. He doesn't dismiss her worries or tell her to toughen up. He acknowledges her feelings. He reminds her that it's okay to feel what she feels. And she falls asleep feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling loved. Marcus Aurelius, who was both an emperor and a father, wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Today, people choose thoughts of compassion, of patience, of love. But this day is not perfect. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about acknowledging reality and choosing how to respond. People still feel sadness. They still feel frustration. They still feel fear, but they don't let those feelings control them. A woman loses her job and she's devastated. She allows herself to grieve. She doesn't pretend it doesn't hurt, but she also doesn't spiral into despair. She reminds herself that this is not the end, that she has faced hard things before and survived, that she will find a way forward. Epictetus taught, it's not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of their significance. Today, people interpret their challenges with courage instead of catastrophe. A man sits alone in his apartment, feeling the weight of loneliness. He doesn't distract himself. He doesn't numb the feeling. He sits with it. He acknowledges it. And in that acknowledgement, something shifts. He realizes that loneliness is not a flaw. It's a part of being human. And he's not as alone as he thought. Millions of others feel the same way. And that shared humanity, that quiet understanding, brings a strange kind of comfort. He picks up his phone and sends a message to an old friend. Not a long message, just a simple, "I was thinking of you. I hope you're well." And that small act of connection, that tiny moment of vulnerability, changes something in both of them. As night falls, people reflect on the day, not with judgment, but with curiosity. They think about the moments they handled well and the moments they could have done better. They don't beat themselves up. They simply learn. Seneca wrote, "Each night before you go to sleep, ask yourself, what weakness did I overcome today? What virtue did I acquire?" Today, people ask those questions, and they go to sleep not with anxiety about tomorrow, but with gratitude for today. The world feels different, quieter, kinder. Not because problems have disappeared, but because people have changed how they relate to those problems. Crime rates, which are often driven by impulsivity and lack of emotional regulation, drop dramatically. Hospitals see fewer stress-related illnesses. Therapists' offices are less crowded, not because people don't need support, but because they're supporting each other. Communities feel stronger. Neighbors talk to each other. Strangers help each other. The world, for one day, remembers what it means to be human. But here's the truth. This day will end. Tomorrow, the world will return to its usual rhythms. People will forget. They'll get caught up in their worries and their egos and their endless distractions. But something will remain. A memory, a feeling, a quiet knowing that another way is possible, that we don't have to be controlled by our impulses, that we don't have to react to everything, that we can choose in each moment how we want to show up in the world. You cannot change the entire world. You cannot make everyone live like a Stoic, but you can change yourself. You can choose in this moment to pause before reacting, to let go of what you cannot control, to focus on what you can. You can choose kindness over cruelty, patience over frustration, presence over distraction. And those small choices, made over and over again, will change your world. And maybe, just maybe, they'll ripple outward and touch someone else's world too. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, spent his nights writing reminders to himself about how to be a better person. Not because he had it all figured out, but because he knew how easy it is to forget. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Today, tomorrow, and every day after, you have that power." The question is not whether the world will change. The question is whether you will. So as you move forward, carry this day with you, not as a fantasy, but as a possibility, as a reminder that peace is not something that happens to you. It's something you create, one choice at a time. And in a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming, that might be the most powerful thing you can do.